So without any further ado, we'll start with Prof. Moha Ayachi. He's unfortunately was the last one, but for some technical reasons, I was told to start with the last. And this is not the end of the session anyway, it's the beginning with the last person. So please, all yours, Mr. Ayachi.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Chairman. I'm very pleased to be with you today, and this is for me an opportunity to present my thanks to the organizers and especially to the University of East of London, namely Sir Seid, who provide us this opportunity to share with you some of our activities. I will present on land governance and the challenges of the fourth industry. As you know, the fourth revolution that has occurred in manufacturing is impacting deeply the human life. From the steam power-based industry to the fourth industry characterized by the new smart factories, Internet of Things, and machine learning, passing through the mass production and computerizing systems, the human life is becoming easier, but also more complicated. As academicians and scientists dealing with land governance and related issues, I feel very close to feel the acceleration of the new technology in human life and unexpected pressure that has created on land in our global area. An incredible transformation happened and new challenges rise and put land resources under threat. Many forest areas are demolished to build more industrial livestock and agriculture. According to the World Resources Institute, the world lost in 2016 30 million hectares of tree cover. Indeed, scientists, researchers, and decision makers are invited to double their efforts in order to take benefit of the new information technology and enhance the human life and the human being. In order to establish an equilibrium and face positively the challenges of the digital age, it is imperative to develop the following elements. First, it is necessary to design new paradigms of land governance to ensure sustainable development, to establish sustainable land policies that pay particular attention to the rights of marginalized groups such as small-scale farmers, pastoralists, women, and youth, to update also curricula to meet the needs of the new technologies such as using of the new systems, unmanned aerial vehicles, the digital images, the processing systems, the machine learning, the intelligence recognition of data spatial infrastructure, the digital mapping, and so on. In this regard, Africa, as I am from Africa, from Morocco, has taken up the challenge by implementing an attractive strategy known as the strengthening capacities in Africa Union, for Africa Union institutions around four components, which are, the first component is to strengthen advisory capacity of the African Union institutions of Africa. Secondly, to develop the training and educational capacities of Africa. Third, to enhance the research capacities. And last one is to set up the network of excellence on land governance in Africa called NELGA. So my speech will talk about this network as an academic network implemented by a series of partners, namely the African Land Policy Center, the German Cooperation, and the GIZ program. For the African continent, the land is a key resource, as you know, for supporting decisions that lead to a more sustainable economy and development. In Africa, we still consider that all activities linked to land and related information provide marketable products and services. This creates a tremendous hierarchy of needs for such land sovereignty, defense, and public safety to resource administration and management. So the network NELGA, as an academic network over Africa, has the following key functions to operate. First, provide and facilitate the academic education and training, taking into account the challenges of the fourth industry. Second, to improve land-related curricula in graduate and postgraduate training courses. Third, define and implement agenda for applied research. Develop a repository for data, indicators, and information on land resources management, and promote knowledge management, dissemination, and knowledge on land resources management. And also, finally, build capacity for monitoring and evaluation tools and systems for best land governance. The network is composed of about 70 partners and 7 regional nodes with the goal to facilitate academic exchange and host community of practitioners and professionals also, to offer short-term courses and training for professionals, to implement scholarship program over Africa, and also provide platforms for policy dialogue, and build and maintain a repository of data linked to land resource management. Some of the NELGA achievements since 2017 are we reached the 21st new and amended training courses at 13 universities. We share good practices in a joint event research, network building, and policy research linkages over Africa. We also conducted 13 policy dialogues conducted by NELGA members, 9 at the regional African Union level, and 4 at the member state level. We also conducted 10 advisory missions on country level, and more than 70 presentations, and 18 at the international level, continental and regional conferences by more than 20 presenters, scientists, presenters from universities. 93% of scholarship are offered for students to conduct their studies on the impact of the new technology and the new paradigms in land management at the level of Africa. We have 7 routes that belong also to the 70 partners in Africa. The nodes developed an area of synergy that encompasses 3 pillars. The first one is to harmonize activities in terms of academic level, such as designing adequate and appropriate capacity development, sharing programs, training programs in terms of training, research, and studies, and also enhance the exchanging activities between students and academic faculties. In the first pillar, we developed also the policy and professional level in terms of sharing best practices at the African level, and also reinforce networking over many partners in Africa. The second pillar was the communication in terms of sharing instruments. The network, NELGA, developed a scientific journal to enable young researchers and scientists to publish the results of their studies. The journal is called the African Journal on Land Policy and Geospatial Sciences. We established also a website in order to share all results of the faculty members, and also students all over Africa, and also a newsletter for each 3 months. We organize also a series of joint events, and especially if I would like to talk about North Africa, we established some of joint events in Sudan, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco, and we share all the results of those events in order to present the land tenure systems and their impact, and the impact of the new technology on enhancing the management of the land resources in the North Africa. The third pillar is to improve the dissemination programs over Africa in terms of sharing the results that come up from our researchers in Africa. Those are the pillars that reflect the needs of individuals, governments, and also the public as well as the private institutions in Africa. The core conceptual model followed and designed for this is in harmony with the priorities of the African Union, and we meet their needs. The network improves the efficiency and quality of land management and strengthens capacities of land use, land administration, environment management, land development that will lead to a more effective land market. A well-functioning of the land market together in Africa with high security of land ownership rights will lead to stronger economies which contribute finally to the stability that we need in Africa, to the prosperity and to the democracy in our region. If we take into account in Africa the multiple informal land rights that inherited from the colonial period and also the modern systems included also in Africa, we find a lot of challenges that make a series of barriers in order to manage and to monitor our land in Africa. All these barriers impact the good management of our resources. So the interrelation between those systems that exist, the colonial systems that comes, the second step, and the traditional systems coexist in Africa, and we face a serious challenges for society, for government, as well as for the national and foreign investors in order to prepare land for any investment in Africa. Throughout Africa, it is necessary to develop, to establish new trends that enable integrating human informal actions and reduce the cost of informal measures. This dualism of managing land between the old systems and the new systems is observed in the region in many forms. Some of them are in a regular form and formal procedures, but others are not in the formal procedures, and they don't guarantee setting up sustainable land resources management. So the effective property rights that is ensured by the formal systems will be our objective. In order to reach this objective, we need to prepare generations that understand the new systems or the new paradigms of managing lands. So we need to enhance our regulations, to go through developing awareness for the authorities at the national levels and also at the regional levels, to understand also the areas of any ecological spaces, land tenure behaviors, and the comprehensive conceptual strategies to enhance land governance in Africa. So the core of those pillars that I've presented, namely, I will finish, namely the basic curriculum that we developed throughout Africa, the continuous professionals strategies that we are setting up in many regions, and the research achievements we reached in just 2 years, because we started the program and the network in 2 years, shows that this network is a good start for Africa to face many problems that impact our land, our resources in Africa. Mr. Chairman, I should stop by this point, and if there is some question, I could come back with the... I'm sorry for the presentation that you will have it on the network, but I prefer to present a summary of this because this is a little bit too long. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Moore, for the very informative talk. And unfortunately, I have to intervene and stop you for the timekeeping. Otherwise, we will stop everybody at the lunchtime. So, any questions?
What is your institution doing in terms of improving the rights of women earn a living and improve their lives. So what is your institution doing in terms of improving that?
Yeah, in terms of what the institutions belonging to NILGA network are doing to improve the access of women to land, to have the right to access to land, I could respond for this point of view from two sides. The first one is Africa of North Africa, of the North, and Africa of the sub-Saharan countries. If we start with the North Africa, the majority of the countries in the North Africa are Muslim countries, Islamic countries. So the rights that are defined in the regulation maintained by those societies in North Africa, there is no, I think that there is no huge problems that linked to the right of women to access to land or to have land or to use their lands, except some of kind of land tenure systems. For example, if you take the public lands in Morocco, we find that the tribes are managing their lives inside the community, and in many times they don't allow women to get married from other persons from another community in order to keep their lands gathered inside the community. But in the last time, more than 5 years, there is a law that is enacted that enable women to get their rights even inside the community lands. So this is kind of the part of Africa that there is no problem for women in that area. And if there is some of the issues in that area, that those issues are not linked to the regulation or to the system, but it's linked sometimes to some of the practices that come up from ignorance or from then the women, they don't know their rights or that. So in this way, we need that to raise the awareness for women in that region that they should know their rights and go and have the rights for accessing to land or use land. Let me go to the south, to the sub-Saharan Africa. That is a huge challenges that we are now facing in terms of studies, of analysis, and also of inventory. The NELGA network and the institutions belonging to this network just launched in less than 1 year to conduct a scoping study, first to understand what are the rights coming from the regulation existing in the sub-Saharan Africa. Second, to try to understand also what are the barriers caused by the local measures or the local practices faced to women. So those researchers started in 1 year, more than 1 year in some areas and less than 1 year in others. And last year in November, we had a research joint event in Addis Ababa. According to the result, what we discussed, we followed at least more than 20 papers just talking on women and the right to access to land and to use land. What comes up is that also in the sub-Saharan Africa, there is a lot of challenges, but also women, they have their rights, even in the local or national regulation or traditional regulations. But the problem is that many of the society members, they don't know or they don't understand what are their rights. So the NELGA institution come up with a result that we need to improve and to raise the level of awareness in Africa in order to let women at least know their rights in those societies. Thank you.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time, and thank you very much, Prof. Moha, for this very interesting talk. And I'm sure Prof. Moha will be available during lunchtime if you want to chat to him or get some more information on his website.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.